Welcome to the deep dive. Today we are focusing all our attention and research on a city that, well, presents a powerful high voltage challenge to any global traveler, Shanghai. We're examining a city often described as, being pulled straight from the future, a metropolis of 26 million people moving at this breakneck, magnetic pace.
It's a spectacular place to explore in depth, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
The central conflict we found across all our source material is just the sheer magnitude of the contrast. Shanghai offers a face that is uh, uh, a Blade Runner-esque vision of tomorrow, all neon, glass, dizzying height.
Right.
Yet, just a few blocks away, you find the other face, something really beautiful and measured, almost like a delicate centuries-old water painting.
That duality. It must make for an intense travel experience. Our core mission for this deep dive is really to extract the essential knowledge you need to navigate this intensity. We need to answer that crucial question. In a city of such extreme contrasts, where infrastructure and history collide daily, can you find a coherent, enjoyable experience? Or is it just, one long case of cultural whiplash?
Exactly. And we're here to provide that shortcut. We'll be breaking down the trip into actionable knowledge, from navigating the necessary bureaucracy, and it is necessary, to figuring out your accommodation strategy. Because where you stay, that's paramount here. And then we'll do a serious, detailed deep dive into the culinary arts, beyond just dumplings, although we'll cover those too, obviously. Finally, we'll give you the essential must-do activities that kind of bridge this past, present, and future, leading to our final verdict on whether this demanding, dazzling city is actually worth the considerable effort.
I love that framing. We have to acknowledge the scale right away, don't we? This isn't just a big city. It's like a global organism of 26 million people. So let's structure this knowledge around Shanghai's undeniable dual identity. We have the logistics and the speed of the future, followed immediately by the old world charm and history. We'll show you how those two identities aren't just neighbors, but are completely well intertwined. The same streets.
And understanding that constant negotiation between the delicate past and the relentless present, that's really the key to unlocking the true Shanghai experience. It's about recognizing that massive scale while at the same time searching for those hidden, intimate moments of history and flavor. Quite a balance.
Yeah, balance indeed. Okay, let's get pragmatic then. Because before you can appreciate that mesmerizing collision of eras, you actually have to get into the city. Our sources highlight that your arrival in Shanghai is, itself, a powerful statement about the city's identity. A high-tech welcome defined by speed and efficiency.
Precisely. If you're flying in internationally, your primary point of arrival will almost certainly be Pudong International, which is PVG. While the other major airport, Hongkou SAA, handles a lot of domestic traffic, PVG is the main international hub, and this is where Shanghai makes its first really massive impression.
Which brings us straight to the obligatory first experience, doesn't it? One that's not just functional transport, but more like a technological demonstration. We're talking about the maglev train.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
One source described the maglev not just as a ride, but as a deliberate statement. It's your first taste of sci-fi reality because it operates using magnetic levitation. It literally floats above the track.
Yeah.
Which eliminates friction, allowing for truly phenomenal speed.
Okay, when you hear phenomenal speed, that sounds exciting, but what's the real-world metric? Like, how fast are we actually talking?
Well, the sources specify it routinely operates at 431 kilometers per hour.
Wow.
Yeah, to put that into perspective, that's roughly 268 miles per hour. That's a velocity most travelers only experience when they're, seated on a plane at cruising altitude.
Right.
Yet here you are, gliding across the ground. And the true demonstration of Shanghai's engineering commitment. It covers the distance from the airport to its connection point with the city's metro network in less than 8 minutes.
Less than 8 minutes. That sets an immediate tone.
Yeah.
This is a city that values precision and speed above, well, almost everything else. It's an unambiguous welcome to the 21st century.
It really is. And that speed is kind of matched by the bureaucracy that precedes it. Before anyone is gliding along at 431 kilometers per hour, they absolutely must conquer the pre-trip hurdle, the Chinese tourist visa.
Ah, yes, the visa. I appreciate the firm warning here in the sources, as this is often overlooked by travelers used to maybe easier entry elsewhere. Why is the advanced visa application so non-negotiable?
Well, for the vast majority of non-Chinese passport holders planning a proper tourist trip, not just a quick transit, the visa is absolutely required. This isn't something you handle at the airport upon arrival, not at all. You must apply for this well in advance at an embassy or consulate in your home country. You just cannot wait. The sources really emphasize that skipping this step, or assuming it's simple, will likely result in a canceled trip, period.
Okay, so plan ahead.
Yeah.
Way ahead. And what specific level of documentation did they demand? You mentioned it takes several weeks.
The process is meticulous. It can feel quite intrusive, honestly. You have to provide a highly detailed itinerary for your entire stay. And that comes complete with confirmed flight bookings, both inbound and outbound, and verifiable hotel confirmations for every single night.
Every night. Wow.
Every night. This isn't a vague outline. They want concrete proof of your plans. And the administrative processing itself can easily take 2 to 3 weeks, sometimes longer, plus the time you need to gather all the required paperwork beforehand. So while things like 144-hour visa-free transit policies do exist for certain nationalities and situations, if you plan to properly explore Shanghai beyond just a layover, you absolutely must prioritize getting that full tourist visa sorted. Don't risk it.
That is extremely important context. Okay, so once that bureaucratic hurdle is cleared and you've survived your maglev baptism,
Mm.
how do we master transit within the actual urban sprawl? Because 26 million people has to mean traffic, right?
Oh, it does. Which is precisely why the research consistently points to the Shanghai Metro as the key advantage. It's widely described as one of the best systems in the world. Seriously, it's incredibly extensive, highly efficient, spotlessly clean, and crucially for international visitors, virtually all the signage, announcements, everything is provided in clear English. This makes navigation surprisingly simple for a system this vast.
So the metro is basically the traveler's lifeline. It lets you access that huge scale without getting hopelessly lost or stuck in gridlock.
Exactly that. The practical advice is simple. Immediately download the relevant Metro app. It makes buying tickets or topping up funds effortless, and get yourself a multi-day pass. This pass is essentially your passport to the whole city. The system's reach means you can pretty much skip the anxiety of surface-level navigation, especially during peak times.
I assume that ties directly back to your warning about surface transport, about the traffic.
It does, very directly. The cautionary advice is straightforward. Avoid taxis during rush hour. And in a city this size, rush hour can feel like, well, half the day. Unless you genuinely enjoy what one source rightly termed meditating in traffic jams, maybe for an hour just to cross a few districts, stick to the subterranean efficiency of the metro. It's funny, the contrast between the sheer speed of the maglev coming in and the potential crawl of rush hour traffic is like a microcosm of the city's challenges. You use the high-tech infrastructure to beat the high-density reality.
That sets a strong strategic precedent then. Use the city's efficiency to your advantage. Okay, now that we've efficiently zipped into the city via high-speed rail and mapped our route using the world-class metro, we arrive at a really pivotal decision: accommodation. The research seems clear that where you choose to sleep fundamentally defines your entire Shanghai trip.
Absolutely. This is the moment you essentially commit to a primary vibe for your stay. Does the traveler want that, old world elegance and a bit of peace? Or do they want the dizzying, immediate proximity to New World wonder? Shanghai offers these really distinct zones, and your choice absolutely sets the emotional tempo of your experience.
Right. Let's begin with the preference for Seoul, perhaps the choice for many experienced travelers. The former French concession or the FFC? What's the story there?
Ah, the FFC. It's truly an urban anomaly. Its history as a foreign concession territory means its architecture and layout are distinctly European, lots of Art Deco, built largely in the 1920s and 30s. The atmosphere is different. It's much quieter, dominated by these lush, plain tree-lined avenues. You find hidden courtyards, charming little cafes tucked into historic buildings, boutiques. It's often called Shanghai's Parisian district, and you can see why.
That sounds absolutely idyllic, like a complete contrast to the overwhelming energy of the 26 million residents we just talked about.
It really is the refuge. It's the place that feels most separate from the relentless ambition of modern Shanghai. It feels like an urban oasis, honestly. And that scarcity, that sense of peace and history, is precisely why it is, as the sources unanimously state, very expensive.
Ah, okay. There's the catch.
There's the catch. You pay a serious premium for staying in the FFC. It is a highly sought-after, highly saturated market, both for residents and hotels. The cost reflects the huge demand for that quiet, soulful environment.
So FFC is for the traveler prioritizing atmosphere, maybe a slower pace, provided they have the budget. Right. Now let's pivot to the quintessential first-timer choice, maybe. The Bund.
Yes, the Bund. If the FFC offers refuge, the Bund offers total immersion. The vibe here is just electric. You are literally right in the heart of the action, situated on the western bank of the Huangpu River. The beauty of the Bund is that dual view. Behind you, you have this solid, powerful line of historic buildings, neoclassical, colonial-era banks and trading houses, symbolizing Shanghai's pre-war global status.
Impressive history behind you. And what's directly across the water?
The future. Plain and simple. The Pudong skyline. All those towers. The sources describe the views from the Bund as truly undefeated, and it's because of this iconic visual confrontation. You're perfectly positioned to witness that collision, the 19th and 21st centuries basically facing off across the river. It's a constant, visually stimulating reminder of why you came to Shanghai. Especially at night when the entire Pudong skyline just ignites. For a first-timer who needs that immediate wow factor, the Bund is probably the strategic choice.
Okay, makes sense. Now moving from the view of the future to being fully in the future. Option 3, Pudong itself.
Right, Pudong. This is the embodiment of the 21st century global financial capital. The vibe here is exclusively ultra-modern. We're talking gleaming infrastructure, massive skyscrapers, luxury high-rise hotels built right into these towers. There's a palpable sense of corporate efficiency, money, ambition. If you are in Shanghai for business, or if you just prioritize that sleek, efficient, high-tech experience above everything else, Pudong is the logical base.
But I sense a but coming. The research suggests a critical trade-off for the leisure traveler, doesn't it?
Yes, there's definitely a but. While it's architecturally stunning during business hours, Pudong can feel quite, well, the word used was sterile after the offices empty out in the evening. It's fundamentally a dedicated financial and business engine. It lacks that organic, street-level pedestrian culture, the hidden little bars, the neighborhood feel that defines areas like the FFC or, say, Jing'an. It can become surprisingly quiet and a bit isolated at night, despite the massive scale of the buildings around you.
Which brings us neatly to Jing'an, often cited as that strategic middle ground. Option 4.
Jing'an is sort of the great compromise that many sources recommend for a balanced trip. It's very central, which makes transit via the metro incredibly easy to almost anywhere, and it successfully blends the modern and the traditional without really forcing you to choose one over the other. You get both.
What are some examples of that blend that stand out in Jing'an? How does it manifest?
Well, you can walk from these gleaming, ultra-modern luxury shopping centers like Plaza 66 or the Kerry Center, and then just minutes away find yourself standing before the beautiful gold-accented historic Jing'an Temple. And it's an active temple, a real spiritual hub, sitting right there amidst all the urban density and commerce. It's quite striking. The neighborhood also offers high-quality dining, great shopping, both high-end and local, and it has a stronger residential feel than Pudong. It provides more cultural substance while remaining super central and accessible. It's summarized often as a solid, practical choice for the traveler who wants versatility and easy access to all the major zones.
Solid and practical. I like that. Okay, accommodations sorted, at least mentally. Time to satisfy the appetite, because Shanghai is absolutely a world-class culinary destination. We're switching gears now from urban geography to, well, edible art forms, and we simply have to start with the undisputed culinary king of Shanghai.
We must indeed pay homage to Xiaolongbao, XLB, the magnificent soup dumpling. This is more than just a dish. It's a cultural touchstone, a mandatory eating experience. These are delicate, pleated parcels of dough, typically filled with savory minced pork. But the key, the magic, is the gelatinized, highly seasoned, boiling hot soup broth that's cunningly contained within the dumpling before it's steamed.
You stress boiling hot for a very good reason, I suspect. And the sources warn that failure to respect the process leads to a painful, regrettable experience. We need a deep dive into the mandatory eating technique. Walk us through this culinary art form step by step.
Okay, this is critical knowledge, seriously. The burn risk is real, and the method is almost ritualistic. Step 1. You never ever bite directly into the XLB straight from the steamer. That risks a geyser of like 200-degree broth hitting your chin, your chest. Bad news. Instead, use your chopsticks to gently lift the dumpling onto your deep dish ceramic spoon. And because the skin is so delicate, you have to be extremely careful not to tear it. That's key.
Okay, so it's resting safely on the spoon. Delicate operation. What next?
Step 2. Using one chopstick, you must delicately poke a small hole, a little vent, into the side of the dough, usually near the top pleat where the skin is thicker. This allows the scalding steam and that initial burst of intense heat to escape safely before it hits your mouth.
Right, venting the pressure. Smart. And then we sip the broth.
Yes, step 3. You tilt the spoon carefully towards your mouth and sip that incredible savory broth that rushes out. It is pure, seasoned perfection. The experts argue this separates the enjoyment of the liquid soup from the texture of the solid filling. Only after the soup is safely consumed and the filling has cooled just slightly. Step 4. Then you eat the rest of the dumpling, often dipping it lightly into the accompanying black vinegar and shredded ginger sauce. It's a measured process, designed to maximize flavor and absolutely prevent burns.
I appreciate the detailed warning and the technique. It sounds like a skill to master, and the contrast here is fantastic, isn't it? You can find these masterpieces at completely opposite ends of the economic spectrum.
That's one of Shanghai's beautiful culinary ironies. You can experience XLB perfection for just a few dollars, maybe 3 or 4 US dollars for a steamer basket, at a tiny, unassuming street-side vendor, places where maybe the family has been making them for generations, using techniques honed by decades of repetition. Or you can pay 10, 15 times that amount at a global flagship location like Din Tai Fung, which is famous worldwide. But a recurring nugget of wisdom across the sources is that the experience at the cheapest, most local hole in the wall is frequently cited as the most authentic and, frankly, the most satisfying. Mastery of this craft is truly democratized in Shanghai. It's amazing.
Love that. Okay, beyond the undisputed king, what other essential regional dishes define the cuisine that a traveler really must seek out?
Okay, moving on. We absolutely must talk about Sheng Jianbao.
Hmm.
Think of this as the XLB's sturdier pan-fried cousin. Where XLB is steamed and delicate, Sheng Jianbao is pan-fried in a shallow, often large cast iron wok. This gives it a stunning texture profile. It often retains that savory soup inside, sometimes a bit less than XLB, but the exterior is characterized by this beautiful, crispy, deeply browned bottom,
Yeah.
while the top remains fluffy and yeast-risen from steaming before the fry. The contrast between the crunchy base and the tender filling is just profoundly satisfying.
Ooh, crispy on the bottom, fluffy on top, still potentially soupy inside. Sounds incredible. What about something that highlights maybe the subtlety of the cuisine?
For subtlety, you have to try scallion oil noodles. Kong, Ban Mian. It sounds deceptively simple, right? Just noodles tossed in an oil that's been infused with slowly rendered, fragrant scallions, often with some dried shrimp or soy sauce added. However, the sources describe the flavor as genuinely profound. It relies entirely on the quality of the oil and the precision of that slow rendering process for the scallions. Get it right, and it's the ultimate comfort food, demonstrating that simplicity, when executed perfectly, can deliver immense complex flavor.
Simple but profound. Got it. And finally, maybe for a dish that speaks to the rich, slow-cooked tradition.
Then you must try red braised pork belly. Hong Xiao Ru. This is a quintessential Shanghainese dish, beloved across the region. The pork belly, usually with skin on, is slowly simmered in a dark, rich, often slightly sweet sauce based on soy sauce, Cheongsing rice wine, rock sugar, and spices. It cooks until the pork is incredibly tender, so tender it literally just melts in your mouth. The fat renders beautifully into the sauce. It represents the rich, comforting flavors of the Yangtze River Delta cuisine and is often considered a dish for celebrations or family meals.
Wow, this culinary landscape perfectly mirrors the city's overall duality, doesn't it? You can be in a palace one night and on a plastic stool the next, eating equally amazing food.
That is the crucial insight, absolutely. You can have a world-class, Michelin-starred fine dining experience on the Vund, overlooking that glittering skyline, complete with impeccable service and, imported foie gras or whatever. An amazing meal. The very next day, you can have what one source described as the most intensely satisfying lunch of your life for $3, perched on one of those tiny classic stools on a busy side street, slipping noodles. Both experiences are equally rewarding, and both are equally characteristic of Shanghai. You need both to understand the city.
Okay, but for the traveler who's maybe already intimidated by the sheer scale of the city or perhaps worried about navigating a menu entirely in Chinese characters, what's the proactive step? How do you conquer that potential intimidation factor?
This came up repeatedly. The sources highly recommend taking a guided food tour, specifically on your very first day or maybe the second. It's cited consistently as a fantastic investment, and here's why. A local guide can immediately break down those initial barriers. They teach you essential ordering techniques, help you pronounce dish names correctly, explain the history and significance of the regional cuisine you're tasting. And most importantly, they take you directly to those incredible, inexpensive, local hole-in-the-wall spots. The places a typical traveler would simply never discover alone, either due to the language barrier or because they're tucked away down alleys. It democratizes the best food in the city for you right from the start. Highly recommended.
Great practical tip. Okay, with potentially full bellies, let's move on to the itinerary. When planning your days in Shanghai, it seems you have to mentally organize your trip as a journey that explicitly moves between the grand historical stage and the futuristic spectacle. Itinerary planning in Shanghai feels like an act of time travel.
It really does. And that time travel must begin with the mandatory architectural symphony, as one source called it, the Bund. This is completely non-negotiable. It requires 2 distinct visits, one during the day and one at night. During the day, you absolutely must walk the length of it, slowly, to appreciate the sheer scale and the incredible architectural diversity of those historic buildings. These colonial-era structures, you see Art Deco, Neoclassical, Beaux-Arts, they're preserved masterworks, really testifying to Shanghai's status as a global financial and trading hub a century ago.
Impressive by day. But the real payoff, the spectacle, is when the sun disappears, right?
Exactly. The nighttime experience is where Shanghai becomes this overwhelming visual spectacle. As darkness falls, the entire Pudong skyline across the river just ignites. It's what the sources rightly call the world's greatest light show. These massive, hyper-modern towers, the tallest buildings in China, are coordinated in this symphony of neon, synchronized colors, shifting patterns, and it's genuinely a jaw-on-the-floor visual shock the first time you see it.
And to fully capture that dazzling scale, the sources recommended a specific viewing platform or method.
They absolutely recommend getting on the water. Taking a river cruise is pretty crucial for the optimal perspective. When you're on a cruise boat in the middle of the Huangpu River, you are perfectly positioned. You see the glittering, historic Bund architecture lining one bank, and then you turn and see the overwhelmingly luminous Pudong skyscrapers dominating the other bank, all from that central vantage point. It transforms the viewing experience from just observation into total 360-degree immersion.
Makes sense. Get on the water. Okay, after you've absorbed the skyline horizontally from the river, the next imperative seems clear. You have to go UP. You have to ascend the future to truly grasp the density of this metropolis.
Indeed. The research really highlights the imperative of viewing the city from above. It's the only way to fully grasp its geographic scale and, frankly, the mind-boggling population density. Shanghai forces you to confront the sheer number of its inhabitants, but from a sort of celestial viewpoint. This means choosing one of the big three observation towers in Pudong.
Okay, let's break down the choices for the traveler. First, we have the sheer height champion, the Shanghai Tower.
Shanghai Tower is the highest, yes. Currently the tallest building in China, second tallest in the world, I believe. So it offers the ultimate bragging rights for height. It's an incredible engineering marvel, soaring past 600 meters with a twisting form. Then you have the Shanghai World Financial Center, known universally as the SWFC. This is the tower that earned that distinctive nickname, the bottle opener, because of its unique architectural trapezoidal cutout near the top.
Right, the bottle opener, instantly recognizable. And the third major player,
The Jinmao Tower. This one holds a special historic place. It was actually the tallest building in China when it opened back in the late 90s. It really kicked off the Pudong super tall skyscraper boom. It's recognizable for its tiered, pagoda-inspired aesthetic, drawing on traditional Chinese architecture. When choosing which one to ascend, though, it's not just about picking the tallest.
Right. The sources seem to suggest the SWFC, the bottle opener, often offers the best overall view. Why might that be preferred over the sheer height of the Shanghai Tower next door?
Well, the reasoning seems practical and geographical. The SWFC's Skywalk observation deck is situated almost perfectly relative to the curve of the Huangpu River. The location of the other two main towers, Jinmao and Shanghai Tower, and the dense financial district below. The sources suggest that the SWFC deck, while not the absolute highest point overall, provides the best all-around perspective. It allows you to look down on the impressive Jinmao Tower, get a fantastic profile view of the massive Shanghai Tower right beside it, and gives you a sweeping, unencumbered vista of the historic Bund, the cityscape, and that iconic river bend. It's about the composition of the view, not just the altitude.
Okay, the composition makes it the winner for many. Got it. So once we've seen the Blade Runner vision from, 100 stories up, we have to immediately ground ourselves back in the delicate past. That requires a trip to the Yew Garden and the surrounding Old City Bazaar, doesn't it?
Yes, this is the necessary counterbalance. You need this after the hyper-modernity. Yew Garden, or Yuan Garden, is a truly stunning and deeply important example of classical Chinese landscape design, dating back to the Ming Dynasty. It's designed to be an immersive, peaceful oasis right amidst the chaos of the old city area. You find traditional architecture, these intricate rockeries meant to mimic mountains, winding paths, beautiful pavilions overlooking tranquil ponds stocked with koi. It's meant to be a meditative experience, a series of unfolding scenes.
So it's a necessary dose of quiet and tradition. But we mentioned a reality check earlier regarding the surrounding area. It's not just Serene Garden.
Right. You cannot access the peace without navigating the commerce. The Yew Garden is a major tourist hub, which means it is usually heavily crowded, and visitors must navigate this dense, sometimes overwhelming maze of shops and food stalls in the bazaar area just to get in and out of the garden itself. The advice is highly pragmatic. Prepare yourself mentally for the sensory overload of the bazaar and the sheer number of people. Be polite but firm with vendors. A clear, kind, no thank you or bayao, saixi is essential. And be extremely cautious with your wallet and belongings. Dense crowds anywhere can attract opportunistic petty theft. So definitely see the beautiful garden, but approach the surrounding bazaar with awareness and maybe some efficient navigation.
Good warning. Now, for the real hidden gem, the activity that the sources seem to single out as revealing a truly unique historical window, something definitely beyond the standard tourist itinerary.
Ah, yes, this is a favorite nugget from the research. The Propaganda Poster Art Center. The location detail alone makes it fascinating. It's not some grand municipal museum on a main square. No, it's discreetly hidden away in the basement of a fairly unassuming residential apartment building down in the former French concession. You actually have to actively look for signs and buzz yourself in. It feels very insider.
That immediately gives it a sense of discovery, doesn't it? What do travelers actually find down there in the basement?
It is a phenomenal private collection. Mostly colorful, very striking, and historically significant propaganda posters, primarily dating from the Mao era, roughly the 1950s, through the Cultural Revolution in the 70s. You have to remember, these posters were the mass media of their time. They used bold colors, heroic imagery of workers, peasants, soldiers, and stark slogans to convey political ideology, promote social campaigns, celebrate massive infrastructure projects.
And why is this such a crucial visit, according to the sources? What makes it stand out?
Because it offers this unique, unfiltered window into a very specific and incredibly dramatic period of 20th century Chinese history. A period that stands in such stark contrast to the commercial ambition and, globalized consumerism you see everywhere in Shanghai today. Seeing these highly aspirational, highly stylized images, often depicting these idealized collectivist visions, allows you to reflect on the immense ideological shifts the city and the entire nation have undergone. It's a profound historical counterpoint. It contrasts that era of collective vision with the hyper-individual ambition embodied by modern Pudong, just across the river.
Yeah.
It's highlighted consistently as a truly unique window and pretty much a mandatory activity for anyone culturally curious.
Fascinating. A must-do hidden gem. And finally, a reminder that sometimes the simplest, freest activities are often the most rewarding in a city like this.
Absolutely. The sources stress this too. The simple act of passive exploration, specifically just dedicating half a day to intentionally getting lost within the grid of the former French concession, is an activity in itself. Put away the map for a bit, look up at the Art Deco details on the buildings, watch the local life happening in the lane houses and courtyards, maybe stop for a coffee. Just absorb that slower, tree-lined, distinctly European-influenced atmosphere we discussed earlier. It's how you consciously balance the intensity of the maglev, the crowds, and the towering skyscrapers. It provides essential breathing room.
Excellent point. Okay, we've assembled the map, the menu, and the itinerary. Now it's time for the crucial vibe check. To truly succeed, maybe even thrive in Shanghai, you need to know what to avoid. And then we need to synthesize the true defining character of this enormous, complex city.
Right. Let's start with the things that can detract from the authentic experience. The sources were pretty decisive on one major tourist trap that should probably be skipped, or at least minimized: East Nanjing Road, specifically the long pedestrianized section.
Okay, if the Bund is the city's grand, sophisticated stage, what is East Nanjing Road? What's the comparison?
It is described almost universally by the sources as Shanghai's version of Times Square, or maybe Oxford Street in London,
Yeah.
but perhaps amplified and maybe less charming. It's a massive, gaudy, neon-soaked pedestrian corridor that is just overwhelming, but for all the wrong reasons. It's primarily filled with huge international chain stores, global fast food brands, and aggressively marketed mass retail aimed squarely at tourists, both domestic and international.
So it's basically a generic sensory overload that lacks the true, unique Shanghai flavor we've been talking about.
Precisely. It kind of strips away that unique contrast between old and new, local and global, that makes Shanghai so fascinating. The advice is pretty clear. Maybe walk through it quickly once if you feel you absolutely must,
Yeah.
just to see the scale of it. But definitely do not dedicate significant time or energy to this area. Your time is far, far better spent exploring the FFC, Jing'an, the Bun's side streets, or the smaller local markets where genuine Shanghai culture thrives.
Good to know. Steer clear or pass through quickly. Now we must turn to the most critical warning for the learner, for you listening. Something that moves beyond mere disappointment or wasted time and involves a direct, financially predatory scam that frequently targets foreign visitors.
Yes, this is a crucial piece of safety and frankly, financial advice that absolutely must be emphasized: the infamous tea ceremony scam. This is widely reported across various travel forums and security analyses for Shanghai. The method is quite subtle initially and relies on exploiting human kindness and the traveler's natural desire for local connection.
Okay, walk us through the mechanics of the approach. How does it typically start?
It generally begins with a seemingly friendly young person, or sometimes a polite, well-dressed young couple, approaching the traveler, usually in a crowded, high tourist area, often near the Bund, People's Square, or even outside museums. They'll approach you with an entirely benign opening line, maybe asking for directions or claiming they want to practice their English or asking you to take their photo. They are often experts at building instant rapport, seeming genuine and curious.
Okay, so they establish a friendly connection first. And once that rapport is established,
Then they skillfully transition the conversation towards Chinese culture, maybe traditions, tea, and then they extend a very casual, seemingly innocent invitation, something like, "Oh, we know a great little place nearby where you can experience a traditional Chinese tea ceremony. Why don't you join us? Our treat." Or, "We're heading there now."
hmm,
The unsuspecting traveler often believes they've made a genuine, friendly local connection. They feel flattered, maybe excited for an authentic experience. They are then taken not to a regular public tea house, but to a small, private room or a specific shop seemingly set up for this purpose. They engage in a pleasant conversation or serve several types of tea.
sounds nice up to that point, and
Huh.
then the devastating outcome.
Yes. Once the tea is consumed and the conversation concludes, the mood shifts. The travelers are suddenly presented with an absolutely astronomical bill. We're not talking about slightly inflated tourist prices here. We're talking hundreds, sometimes even thousands, of US dollars equivalent for just a few small cups of tea. The scammers often become aggressive or intimidating if payment is refused, sometimes involving large managers or blocking the exit. The critical rule of thumb, the absolute guideline you must follow: if an unsolicited invitation from a complete stranger on the street seems too good, too easy, or too convenient to be true, especially involving going somewhere private, politely but firmly decline and immediately walk away. Do not enter any private establishment or back room with a stranger you just met. Stick to public, reputable places you choose yourself.
That is essential, actionable advice that could save someone a lot of money and distress. Thank you. Okay, having hopefully avoided the scams and the generic chain retail, let's turn to the defining character of the city itself. If you had to boil down the underlying feeling, the psyche of this complex place based on the research, what is the defining word?
The word that came up most frequently, woven through almost all the material trying to capture the city's essence, is ambition. Shanghai possesses this relentless energy and almost overwhelming drive toward progress, toward scale, toward economic dominance. It feels like a city that is constantly, irrevocably, and incredibly rapidly moving forward, always building something bigger, faster, higher. The ambition is palpable in the air.
That ambition sounds colossal, almost intimidating. But how does that ambition manage to function relatively smoothly with 26 million people and all those layers of history we've discussed? It seems like a contradiction.
That is precisely why the layered reality is often described as managed chaos. Yes, it is a city of absolutely massive scale, and yes, there are crowds almost everywhere. The population density is staggering in places. However, the chaos is somehow precisely managed. The infrastructure, as we've discussed, is truly world-class. The metro runs on time with almost clockwork efficiency despite the volume. The massive crowds on the sidewalks, in the stations, they generally have a definite, discernible flow and order to them. It's an intense, demanding environment, certainly, but it functions because of relentless planning, management, and massive investment in that infrastructure.
Hmm. And this brings us back beautifully to the most captivating element, doesn't it? Those specific visual examples we touched on, where the old and the new aren't just segregated into different districts, but are literally intertwined, existing in the very same frame. This is the real Shanghai, perhaps.
These fleeting moments, these juxtapositions, are what truly define the city's unique identity for many observers. Think about those images again. You might see elderly residents dedicated to their morning tradition, meticulously performing slow Tai Chi movements or group fan dances in the small park. And right behind them, looming over the trees, is the ultra-modern, glowing, twisting facade of the Shanghai Tower, or another huge skyscraper. The ancient ritual continues, seemingly undisturbed, but the 21st century is an unavoidable backdrop. They occupy the same geography, somehow coexisting.
Yeah, that's a powerful image. And the other example, the one contrasting the technological present with the historical street economy, the food cart and the robot.
Right. It's the perfect encapsulation of that managed chaos and intertwined reality. You might genuinely see a sleek, modern, automated delivery robot, a symbol of hyper-efficiency, and the digital economy rolling quickly along a pavement. And it carefully navigates around a man selling, say, hand-pulled noodles or savory street snacks from a small, battered-looking cart that appears centuries old. A cart perhaps passed down through generations. The key point is that man and his traditional cart are still there, still commercially viable. They haven't been entirely forced out or erased by the modern food delivery apps and chains. Shanghai absorbs the future without always demanding the complete erasure of its deep-rooted human-scale past.
So the conclusion on the overall vibe, then, is that it is fundamentally stimulating, if demanding.
Intense, yes. Demanding, definitely. Stimulating, absolutely. And honestly, potentially exhausting sometimes because it requires your constant engagement and adaptation. But the absolute consensus across all the source material is that Shanghai is never, ever boring. It demands that you participate in its energy, its contrasts, its forward momentum, and it rewards that participation handsomely with unforgettable experiences.
Which finally brings us to the moment of truth. After navigating the bureaucracy, enduring the maglev speed, mastering the XLB eating technique, and absorbing the demanding managed chaos of the place, the final verdict. Is Shanghai ultimately worth the effort?
The answer from the sources is a resounding yes. But, and this is really crucial, it comes with very clear conditions. Conditions defined by the traveler's own preferences. Shanghai is absolutely worth it if you identify as what the sources generally term a city person.
Okay, let's solidify what that term city person really means in the specific context of Shanghai travel.
It means you are a traveler who fundamentally thrives on raw, high-octane energy. Someone who loves cutting-edge, ambitious architecture, the kind that makes you crane your neck. Someone who actively seeks out incredible food diversity, from the street stall to the Michelin star. And someone who genuinely appreciates world-class, efficient public transport that operates smoothly under immense pressure. If you love engaging with a truly massive, vibrant, constantly moving, and globally significant metropolis, then Shanghai is described consistently as a world-class destination that will undoubtedly blow you away with its sheer spectacle and scale.
Conversely, though, if the traveler is seeking refuge, relaxation, or maybe a slower pace, the verdict shifts quite dramatically.
It absolutely shifts. Shanghai is probably not worth the effort if you are looking for a quiet, contemplative, relaxing getaway. It is definitely not the place for that. It's also likely not worth it if you are easily overwhelmed by constant crowds, by the massive scale of everything, by the necessity of sometimes intense navigation, or just by the sheer intensity of the city's palpable ambition. Shanghai is an experience that demands your kinetic participation, your energy, not just passive observation from the sidelines. You must be ready to be challenged by it.
So in summary, it's really for the highly curious, highly engaged traveler, someone who wants to feel the pulse of the 21st century while simultaneously tasting, seeing, and feeling the history of the 20th and earlier, often in the same moment.
Precisely. It's for the traveler who wants to be dazzled, yes, but also challenged, and critically extremely well-fed across the entire economic spectrum. It's a demanding city, no doubt, but one that richly rewards curiosity with a vision of progress that is somehow almost uniquely interwoven with its complex, layered history.
That blending of relentless ambition and delicate history, highlighted so perfectly by that image of the ancient ritual being performed under the newest skyscraper, that seems to be the central tension, the core fascination we've discussed throughout. That blending is the great success, perhaps the defining characteristic of Shanghai. And that brings us naturally to our final provocative thought for you, the listener, to take away and mull over.
Yeah, we constantly return to those specific visual juxtapositions, don't we? The 100-year-old noodle cart surviving, even thriving, right next to the automated delivery robot. This really showcases Shanghai's unique, or at least highly effective, ability to charge forward at maximum velocity without completely wiping out, demolishing, or displacing its historical human-scale past. So this raises a vital, perhaps global question for you to consider. In a rapidly developing world where progress so often seems to necessitate the mass erasure of cultural identity, historical fabric, and traditional ways of life, how does Shanghai manage to hold on to both its delicate past and its relentless drive toward the future, often simultaneously in the same space? What specific structural, planning, or maybe even philosophical lessons can other rapidly expanding global cities in Asia, Africa, Latin America, everywhere potentially take from Shanghai's unique, successful, if sometimes chaotic brand of managed chaos?
It's a fundamental question, isn't it? A question of sustainability, identity, and whether high-speed progress can ever truly coexist with deep-rooted human history. Something to think about. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the extreme, fascinating contrasts of Shanghai. We'll see you next time.
Travel smart and travel well.